Today we're looking at Lesson 69, which we're still continuing to work with decimals. And today we're actually dealing with comparing and ordering decimals. Now, what that is trying to decide by looking at them which one's larger and being able to put them in order. So comparing and ordering decimals. Now, when we compare and order numbers without looking at the decimals, we know that we have to look at place value. So if I said the number 1 and the number 10, well, which is larger? You would say the 10 is larger. But you did that by knowing that the place value of 1, and here is a place value of 1, and here's a place value of 10. So you knew by looking at the place values which number's larger. Just like if I said compare 122 compared to 123. Well, if we're looking at place numbers, place value, 100's place, 100's place, the same. 10's place, 10's place, the same. It's when we get to the 1's place that has the larger value, so it would be the larger number. Now, it's that same basic principle when we are comparing decimals. So to compare decimals, let's take a look at an example. If I have 12 and 3/10 compared to 1 and 23/100. Well, if you take a look at it, they are all the same number. We've got a 1 and a 1. We have a 2 and a 2. We have a 3 and we have a 3. The key is that decimal place, which helps us establish place value. On this one, I have 12 whole, and here I only have 1 whole. So I would know automatically that in this case, the 12 is the larger of the two without looking even at the decimal value, because I can look at my whole number and I can compare my whole number. Now, where this gets a little tricky is when you are comparing or ordering numbers that have place values in the decimal range. For example, if I said 1 and 23/100 compared to 1 and 2/10. Well, this has become a little more challenging. I'm looking at hundredths in this one, but I'm only looking at tens in this one. That's hard to do. So what I will always say is you need to make the place values equal. I have 2 place values on this side, so therefore over here I'm going to put 2 place values. I can add the 0 without changing anything in the value. So now when I say look at it to compare, well, here's a whole, and here's a whole, and on this side I have 23/100, and on this side I have 20/100. Well, what's bigger, 23 pieces out of my 100 or 20 pieces out of my 100? Hopefully right away you've said, well, that's easy, Mrs. Gomes, 23 is bigger. Exactly. But I could do that because I had the same number of places on both sides. That made it easy to compare. So I would look at my whole numbers first, like we did up here, and we said, well, 12 compares to 1. Well, 12 wins. It's the bigger of the two. Here, I looked at 1 compared to 1, and they were equal. So then I would go to my decimal places. And if I have 2 on this side, need to make sure I have 2 on this side by adding the 0. Let's go ahead and I'll give you one more and I'll have you put down the answer and then we'll take a look at what you did. What if we were to compare 1 5/10 and 1 5/100? First thing you're going to do is what? Hopefully you said balance your decimal places. 2 decimal places, 2 decimal places. Now, go ahead and put your comparison symbol in there. Well, you would ask yourself, what's bigger? 50 out of 100 or, so 50 out of 100 or 5 out of the 100? And hopefully you put this, because 50 out of 100 would be bigger. So, first step is look at your whole numbers. Second step is balance out your decimal places so you have the same number of decimal places on each side. And then compare from there. Now, sometimes you won't be just comparing 2, but you'll need to put more than 2 in order. That would be the ordering of decimals. Now we do the exact same thing. So we would look at our whole numbers first. Well, a 1, and a 1. Whole numbers are all equal. Second, balance out your decimal places. 2 decimal places, 1 decimal place, so let's make it 2. So 2 decimal places and 2 decimal places. So check your whole number. Balance out your decimal places, then do your ordering or comparing. Well, in this case, sorry, look at this, look at the numbers. This is 2 out of 100. This is 20 out of 100, and this is 12 out of 100. Well, what's the smallest? Hopefully there wasn't too much problem and you said the smallest would be the 2 out of 100. And then what would be the next one? Hopefully you put down 12 out of 100, and then obviously the last one is 20 out of 100. So make sure you're just staying aware of the fact that you have to follow those steps to compare and order fractions. Compare and order decimals. So let's wrap up by going ahead and writing those rules down just so that you have them stuck in your head. Number 1, check whole numbers. If you look at those first, that will help you a bunch. Remember, the whole numbers will be in front of the decimal. So, number 1, check your whole numbers. Number 2, balance your decimal places. Now, by balancing your decimal places, you will make sure they all have the same. They all have 2 decimal places. They all have 3 decimal places. You will make sure they all are the same number of decimal places. That's balancing your decimal places. And then the third thing you do is compare or order, whatever it is that they're asking you to do. Comparing is if you're doing 2 of them. Ordering is if you're doing more than 2. Now we're going to finish up today, but I'm going to give you a couple sample problems to do, and we will check those in class tomorrow. Now with these, what I want you to do is I want you to actually write them out in your notes with the correct answer in there. The first problem that I want you to do is comparing 2. 3 21/100 compared to 32 1/10. The second, compared to And the third is
I'm not the one saying that. I mean, I don't know. We're both better. You were the most desirable one.
and the last one that we're doing of this type is Alright, so you've got 4 problems. Make sure you've written out the numbers and the comparison symbols on those 4. And then I'm going to have you put a set of decimals in order. So you are ordering this pair because obviously it'll be more than two to be able to order them. So here is your pair to put in order. You don't need to copy mine down, just write them down in the correct order. And then last, one more, putting them in order. And again, you don't have to write them out in this order, just write them out in the correct order after looking at whole numbers, balancing your decimal places, and then put them in the correct order or compare them. Now we'll check this set tomorrow to make sure you understand what you're doing, but hopefully you found that it was pretty easy when you follow those 3 steps. Have a great night.